Hi, Mark here from the Tangent-Bound Podcast Network and host of the flagship show, the Tangent-Bound Podcast. Did you know that we over at Tangent-Bound are always looking for amazing podcasts to promote? And did you also know that we are also proud nerds and geeks of everything from movies, music, gaming, TV shows, and comic books to wrestling, MMA, soccer, and football? Whatever you can nerd or geek out about, we've got it. And if you're interested, we can help you find it. And if you're a show looking for a place to call home, we've got you covered. Side effects may include upset stomach, dizziness, tumors, shakes, and in some rare cases, death from excessive laughter. Though to be fair, it's only sometimes. Other side effects may include diarrhea, gallstones, heart palpitations, and strong desire for cookies on the dark side. Talk to your doctor and visit TangentBoundNetwork.com and see if Tangent-Bound Network is right for you.
Sucks to the last drop. Are you gonna blow your head off? Take good aim and don't forget to duck. A light sucks every Monday and all the way to Sunday, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't care how you're doing, what's up or how's it hanging. I'd like to buy this world one last drink. Life sucks all of the time. Stick it up your sunshine, and then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day.
Welcome to the Crazy Life, everyone. I'm Jen, and I'm your hostess for the evening. Sorry I was missing last week. I am trying, folks. I do apologize. I feel really bad when I miss a show, but sometimes life gets in the way of things. But anywho, with me as always, my really, really big, strong backbone that are always there, even when I can't be. We have Brian and Henno. Hey, guys.
Howdy.
Just call me always.
You want to be named after a
awesome showmates. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, fair enough. So.
I appreciate you guys. I do.
Well, that's all right.
I may not say the stuff I need to.
I appreciate that. Yeah, you know, and Henno and I had a really nice talk last week that actually we had a different topic to talk about, and we just never got to it.
Yeah.
But we had a really good talk, I think, in its place. So
that's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Well, since I know you're going to make me do it.
Yep.
I was going to say, and you know what that means.
You know the rule.
All right.
So
start us off in the week.
The Gen rule, as we call it.
Yes, for you new listeners, whenever I miss a show, I'm responsible for starting off the How's Your Week segment of the show.
Mm-hmm.
So, how my week was. It's been getting kind of crazy with work because we're down to just a couple people. So it's causing me to have to cover a lot more hours than I've been used to. So I've been trying to do that, and then I'm coming in, I have to go in a lot earlier than usual, so I'm usually up around 3 in the morning, which has really been interesting, I guess, physically for me, because as we've talked about on the show before, how important sleep is, and having enough time to re-energize yourself. And I think I've been struggling a bit with the whole re-energizing myself and filling my own cup before giving to others and following those rules that we've kind of have talked about before. So I've been struggling a touch. And I have not been doing the best with my medicine again, so...
Oh, no.
I know. I'm so bad about that. And I know I need to, especially during times like this. And
how does it happen? I'm just curious.
Yeah.
I just how does that happen?
I get up in the morning. I'm supposed to be taking my meds when I get up in the morning. I get up in the morning, I get my coffee, and I'm like, well, I don't want to take my meds with coffee because the coffee's hot, and then one thing leads to another, and I leave the house, and then I come home from work, and basically laziness. And it's horrible to say because like, in my mind, I hear myself, and I know how lame it sounds. It's like I hear the words, and I know how just it is stupid. That's really stupid. It's like then you get a cup of orange juice, or you just grab a bottle of water and you drink that with your pills, and it's done. But I don't know why.
I get it. I totally get it. There's a couple things that I take every morning that it's best to be taken with food. But I have to make the conscious effort to like, okay, if I'm not eating at the house and I'm going to eat, when I get to work or on my way or whatever it is, I have to put all the little pills in a Ziploc bag and bring it with me. And even then, sometimes it'll be in my pocket and it's all of a sudden 10 o'clock and I'm like, oh, I didn't take any of them.
Right.
Yeah.
So I get it.
Yep. I've been there too.
It happens. Yeah. And it's one of those things and it's tough because like I just said, I hear the words and it's always been this way for me. It's like I hear the words and it makes sense and I get the logic behind it. And I'm like, yes, it's so simple and so easy right there in front of me. I just have to do it. Yeah. For some reason, I cannot get myself to do it on a regular basis.
But how many times have we talked on the show about like me with phone calls or what? It's the same idea. It's like, I have the phone on me all the time. So all I have to do is put it to my head and talk to somebody, and yet I'm like, 3 weeks later, maybe I'll get to it, so I get it, and honestly, the thing is, like, even with my, my medicines that I take, cause I take some in the morning and some at night, and or when I first get up and then some before bed, I should word it because morning and night are not the same to me as they are to everyone else. But it's like in the daytime, I take my my allergy medicine. So that has worked so well for me to not skip medicine since starting that, because if I don't take that, I'm miserable all day. So, not just beating myself up because you should have done this, but like my head and my nose,
Yeah, so, but that's how I am. By the afternoon, I'm like, okay, didn't take the decongestant.
Yep. And then at night, I take my antidepressant. So if I don't take that, I'll feel the effects of that, so that's what's worked for me. Now I know, again, everybody's got different stuff. My mom's on insulin. And there's times she forgets to take, not usually the first one. Like when she first gets up, she's good, but it's the second one. Sometimes she'll be like, did I take my shot?
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, I don't know. I didn't see it, so, she runs into that kind of thing. So it can happen it's so easy to do.
Yeah. It is. It is very easy to do. And I always feel better. You would think that I'd be motivated because I do feel better.
You'd think the Pavlov's dog response.
Today,
Yeah,
I really would. Because even today, I was feeling really rough this morning, and there really wasn't any reason why. I'm like, I don't know why. My head's all swimmy, and I'm just not it. I'm not together.
Yeah.
And I thought about it. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take my medicine and see if maybe that fixes things. And sure as heck it does. I almost said something I shouldn't.
Nice catch. Yeah.
But sure as heck it does. And I started feeling better. And it's like, that's so dumb. Like if none of you guys was saying these things to me, it's almost one of those moments you just want to smack somebody upside the head. And I seriously want to smack myself upside the head and like, you dummy. Come on now.
And the best part about it is you feel better when you do what you're supposed to do. It's funny because you would think general human nature is if something makes us feel better, we're generally more likely to do it, So why, it's like, why are you fighting,
It's like, why are you fighting this? What is the motivation behind this? And it's so funny because, one of the things that I love most about my husband is he's really great with understanding how to manage me. which, I think everybody in their own way has to be managed to a certain level. And, don't get me wrong, I'd manage him in his way as well. But like one big time we were talking, and I think I've mentioned on the show before, we were talking about something and he was teasing me, and I told him, like, well, I'm just not going to say anything anymore, and I'll just deal with it. And he stopped me. He's like, no. You need to always make sure that you tell me where you're at in your headspace, because that way I can get in front of it instead of, days down the road, you've been in your head and I have to play catch up and really try to fix things and whatever. Uh-huh. And, and the stuff like that. And when it comes to my medicine and stuff, he's never happy, of course, when he finds out that I've been messing around with my meds again.
Good,
but
right?
Slacking.
Yeah.
Yes, slacking on my meds. Yeah. And stuff like that, because it does. It affects not just myself, but it affects him, and it affects people around me. And I don't realize it as much as I should. So
what are you going to do about it?
Yeah.
I have refilled, and I'm out of a couple of them. Mm-hmm. So I have set my refills off to my local pharmacy, my refill requests, so I should be able to pick them up tomorrow afternoon, and have a full supply, and I can start taking them on a regular basis again. Mm-hmm. We'll give it a try again.
I think you should implement something like you're not allowed to have your coffee until you've taken your medicine.
Here's the irony of the whole thing. My dog is on medicine.
I bet the dog gets medicine every day.
Yeah. He gets his medicine.
Yeah. And probably gets a talking to when he kind of refuses it a bit. You need to take this.
Yes.
Well, when you do that, just hold a mirror by the dog.
Yeah, there you go. Now, do you know what it is? I think I figured out the answer.
Yeah.
He gets a piece of cheese with his pills every morning.
Well, that's what you need.
Maybe that's just
packing some cheese.
I'm just picturing your husband putting your pills in cheese and trying to get you to eat them, and you're just like,
he just gets a bag of those pill pockets.
Yes.
It's good enough for the dog.
Look, they're like combos. Yeah.
Oh, combos! Adult pill pockets. I love it.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh my.
Yeah. I like this idea a lot.
Yes.
I could see this.
Start hiding my pills in my food.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's just like a little kid. You have to trick them sometimes.
Right. Well, I remember when, in order for me to get you to take cough medicine at times, I had to like, I have a cookie.
This is true, folks.
Yeah.
I will not do cough syrup without a 2-cookie chaser.
I am not exaggerating.
2 cookies, not just one. 2-cookie chaser to get that taste of that nasty stuff out of my mouth.
Yeah. Yeah. Ugh. 100% serious.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
That holds true to this day. I not do cough syrup without 2 cookies.
Yeah. I don't blame you. Cough syrup's nasty. Yeah.
That's why I can't do a lot of alcoholic beverages that have a cherry flavor to them. It's because they taste too much like cough syrup to me.
A lot of them really do. Yeah. That's why it's like they just need to make like whiskey flavored cough syrup, and well, no, probably not, because never mind. I just thought of the alcoholic implication of that. I just thought about how I'd be taking cough medicine more frequently. Anyway. I'm kidding. I wouldn't have, but.
So that's kind of, that's been my week, has been really been focusing on, self-care, and really I'm giving a lot to others and I'm not giving enough to myself, and trying to find that balance. And, and also.
All goes back to the oxygen masks. Put yours on, take a few breaths, then you worry about putting it on other people.
And another thing that really has popped up that I thought was interesting to mention on the show is I have a set bedtime. Now, because I like schedules and I like to, make sure I have X amount of hours of sleep and stuff like that. Well, something my husband has pointed out, he's like, it's an arbitrary bedtime. It's when you've decided that you have to go to bed. He's like, it's not when your body is telling you you're tired. It's not when your system is saying it needs more or less. Mm-hmm. It's you said, this is the time I'm going to bed. No. And I'm like, that's a good point. Mm-hmm. I was thinking about this, and I'm like, that isn't really listening to my body. That's not really listening to myself. It is a little bit, because I understand that I do need a lot of sleep, because that's just me as my nature. I do need a lot of sleep. And I want to make sure I get enough sleep. Mm-hmm. But on the flip side, I could do more with really paying attention of, if I'm tired earlier, I need to go to bed earlier. If I'm not tired, I shouldn't be stressing myself out to be tired.
Right.
Because in my head, I have dictated, I need to be in bed this time.
Yeah. Right.
So, yeah, so it's just kind of some interesting ahas this week.
I think it's kind of for some people that does work, though. Like 10 o'clock's my bedtime. I'm going to be in bed at 10 o'clock, and for some, like me, that's really never worked for me, because of my insomnia and anxiety and stuff. So it's, it really is figuring out what works best for you. And if listening to your body is the best, then you potentially could end up like me and not fall asleep until 9 a.m. But, but for some other people though, like you were saying, if it's 7:30, you're tired, go to bed. Sometimes that's fine, but you also have to be prepared to potentially wake up maybe 2-3 hours early, and then figure out what you're going to do with yourself. So,
It's all about balance. It's listening to your body. It's knowing your system and knowing what makes it work for you. Mm-hmm. So it was just an interesting comment to kind of make me think a little bit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thinking's always good. Well, not always, but for the most part.
No, you're right. Thinking is good. Overthinking is not good.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, with that being said, all right. Who's next?
Well, since you're talking about sleep, I can go. I went to bed at like 8:30 on Friday night.
Wow.
Wow, that's my hours, dude. What's up?
No, it was Thursday night. It was Thursday night.
Oh, okay.
But it was seriously so all week, I just kept going to bed earlier and earlier, and I was just tired.
Huh.
And it was Thursday night, and I got home, and Sharon left. She was there. They were doing a benefit, so she had to work late and help get it all set up for the weekend. And I had a cup of coffee at 6:30. I'm doing stuff. I was getting some things done, and all of a sudden it's like 8 o'clock, and I'm like, I feel like just getting in bed. And I was like, so I did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't read. I did nothing.
It's too late to take a nap. If you're going to sleep, you might as well just go full on and go to bed,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I got up at, I don't know, 6 o'clock, 6:30 on a Friday, which is my day off, which is awesome. Total super great start to the day. Yeah. Super rested, the whole thing. And it was really odd to me because it was a very strange, I'm typically an 11:30 person. That's when I go to bed usually, and I'm usually doing stuff. And it wasn't like that this week. It was like 10:30, then it was 10, and then 8:30. It was just bizarre. And then I slept in on Saturday, and it was one of those, I can't explain it. I usually like that stuff. Then I wake up and I'm sick one day.
Yeah. Right.
So, but that hasn't happened. Now, however, here's the funny part. Last night I was in bed at 11 o'clock. A bunch of text messages came through. Full insomnia. I didn't go to bed until 4:30.
Oh.
I got up at 6:30 and I worked all day today.
Yeah.
And I don't feel groggy right now. Usually, that's 2 hours of sleep usually is a crusher.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I left work a little bit early just because I didn't want I was like, I don't push it, right?
Sure.
And the only thing I can think of is that I actually was taking care of myself this week and I was in a place where I can handle this. Mm-hmm. But fun news is I have been, I shared last week a little bit about sitting at the desk, nothing happening. Sitting at the desk, nothing happening. Just from a text message from drummer Dave, I sat down and I've been working on a bunch of songs, and I did it all weekend long, and they don't suck. And,
you know what though? Even if they did suck, it's still moving, It's
crazy how, like, if we were talking exactly a week ago, I wouldn't even want to talk about it.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even want to look at that list that's on my desk, that hurt, to me it's a mountain.
Yep.
And I just sat down and started chipping away at it. And the next day I chipped away at some more. And I didn't do what I typically do with these things so my life has always been about, it really has been about extremes. I tend to dive into one thing too far and forgo everything else. Mm-hmm. And I don't allow balance in my life.
Right.
And that's why I swing a lot. That's why it's just been, my whole life has been like that. It's like everything crash. And I found myself finding balance with my daily routines. Sure, there was a lot of stuff that I wanted to do this weekend that I didn't do, but I felt like I was flowing on, whatever you want to call it, God's time, the universe's time, whatever. I was riding the wave.
Right.
Whatever felt right, I did it.
Awesome.
And I got things done, and it felt really good. I even went out this week a couple of nights, went to see some live music. A friend of mine is moved out of town on Tuesday, and he had to go at the end of the week, and he had to go on a away party, and he's someone that I'm going to miss a lot. And but overall, great. I mean, I've had a really good week. It's really felt good to kind of, it's weird to feel productive yet also feel like I was just lazy enough.
That's good though. Yeah.
Like I didn't work.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't work out a bunch. I really needed to do. I really should have. Based on the habit I've been getting myself back into of getting back in the gym, is I should have been in there on Friday or Saturday, but I didn't. And I was like, well, I'll do it Sunday after work. Well, after 2 hours of sleep, I'm like, well, I'm not going to go work out after work on Sunday.
Right.
But tomorrow's another day, and, it'll be there for me. So. Oh, and one last thing before I pass on, just because I want to say this at the beginning of the episode, not the last. The second part of Shrink to Shrink's episode on 13 Reasons Why came out today on their podcast. And first thing I want to say is last week, Colleen Mullen is Courtney's doctor.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And I kept brain, on it. And yeah, so it's Courtney and Colleen. They go into more of the social aspects of the high schoolers portrayed. They go into social media. They go into bullying. They go into date rape. They go into a lot of the other things that led to the suicide. A great episode. Highly recommend everyone check it out. Shrink to Shrink. That's the word shrink, the number 2, and the word shrink.
And I will have both parts, a link for both parts of it in the show notes.
Excellent. Oh, and one other thing is then today I'm listening to another podcast I listen to. They're called Dropping Loads. There are some guys in Florida. It cracks me up because, I hope to meet these. This is another group of guys that are on my, I want to travel to Florida one day and hang out with them. Mm. The funny part is I'm old enough to be their fathers.
Right.
I mean,
no, Hanno. Cool uncle, not father. Mom's friend, whatever. That's what I tell people. I'm like,
yeah.
I'm like, I'm old enough to be your mom's special friend. That's what I like to tell them. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that was the one thing I was asking. So how old are your parents? Because, but they're really fun guys, and the podcast is great. They have two of the guys are on there every week, and then they have their semi-permanent, and they rotate through them. And I love all of them. And today they talked about singer from Linkin Park, Chester, and his suicide.
Yeah.
Because they had Metal Ness was the semi-permanent on, and Ness always talks about his segment. And they so one thing that they've never done before is they talked about their own experiences with depression and and failed suicides.
Yeah. Oh,
and
wow.
Ness had a failed suicide, and they two of the guys on the show who suffered from depression talked about it. And the greatest thing is the one guy that didn't, Milky, he sounded just like, Tony. Like, I don't understand, like at first he was trying to make it logical. He was trying to make, like, what's wrong? What, don't you just, and then finally he took the time to understand what it's like. And, that always makes an episode heavy, but it was, it's just great to hear more of the dialogue and the conversation and, people who know that they have this in their lives and do what they can to stay out of that.
Yeah. It's the silver lining to these tragic events, when someone dies or whatever is like this. I don't know, like, cause I haven't listened, like, I don't know, like, did they know each other had, deals with depression, or was this,
yes and no.
Okay.
I mean, Ness, from the sound of it, kind of kept it to himself. Is probably something like that happened in his life about 5 years ago. It sounded like it wasn't something that he talks about very much. It was a very dark period of his life, is what he said.
Yeah.
It sounds like they all knew about it because they'd all experienced it together in one way or another.
Okay.
And they're like super tight friends. That's the thing that. So they've, this wasn't like an epiphany to any of them.
Okay. But still, kudos to them for doing it, cause
it was a great conversation.
Courage. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And then, and just to be, and also just the honesty and the openness, with everyone. And it made me, listening to the show, I was like, wow, I'm so glad I do this podcast because it allows me to relate to people in ways that I wouldn't, because I'm in Milky's place. I've never had depression. I've never suffered from it. And, at some time in my life, I probably also tried to look at it in a logical way, or looked at mental health stuff, but I don't any longer. And I'm so happy for that, because I would rather have compassion than judgment.
Yeah.
That's a strong statement. I like that.
That's awesome. I love that. And I don't mean this to sound sexist, but I'm extra glad that it was guys talking about it too, because a lot of guys hold this in. And like I said, anyone having this conversation, I'm on your team. Like I'm all for it.
Yep.
I love when people put this stuff out there, because the more we talk about it, the more people can understand and look for things to, maybe help others with and all this. And maybe the more and more we talk about it, the less and less suicides there'll be. That's the end hope. And, people will get the help they need.
Oh, that was the one thing that Pouch talked about, is he literally talked about spending day after day after day calling that suicide hotline. And this was the greatest message. He from a first person's, his experience was, I needed someone to talk to. I called them every single night and somebody picked up and talked to me.
Right.
And the next night I called them again and somebody picked up and talked to me. And the next night and the next night, and it never stopped. And I was like, oh, that's, amazing. And so to have somebody like that share that experience and then say, use this number. It really works.
And like I've said before, it doesn't even have to be suicide. It's if you're feeling a panic attack or crisis, maybe not the suicide prevention number, but there's the other one, the 741-741, if you text to that.
Yep.
But there's other ones out there that are like crisis lines, essentially. Whatever tool you need to use it to help you through these things, because sometimes you can't, you can have a panic attack and there's just no one who can come over, or there's no one there, but somebody on the phone might be able to talk to you through the situation, and it should never be taken. Or
even he was talking about even texting with that, Yep.
Just
having someone to text.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Because it is. It's, you're not alone at that point.
Yep.
Someone cares. That, like, those are so important. And that's why all this is so important to get this dialogue or continue this dialogue. I shouldn't say get it going. It's been going, but it always fades away. And like I mentioned last week, I was like, and I've said it before as we've talked about Robin Williams or Chris Cornell or Scott Weiland, is like people talk about this and then 3 weeks later, it kind of, goes by the wayside. And, and that part of it kind of needs to stop. We need to make sure that dialogue doesn't go away after 2 weeks because the problem doesn't go away in 2 weeks. It's still out there. It's still, whatever. So, kudos to them for doing that. That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's
cool.
awesome. Yeah.
Like I said, I'm, applaud to anybody who's willing to do it because it's not business you have to put out there. You know what I mean? Like, that is very, very personal. Most people who are dealing with this kind of stuff, you have to be on their complete inner circle to really talk about it with them, because, the illness tells you that everyone's gonna think less of you or blah, blah,
judge you.
Yeah, judge you. So, it's anybody willing to do that. It's a big, big step. It also generally means you've kind of, it generally means that you're probably moving the right way if you're able to talk about it and rationalize where you were to where you are now. And,
yeah, that's a good point.
It's a good measuring stick sometimes too.
It's awesome that they're able to do that and put that out there in the universe. That's amazing.
Yeah.
How about you, B?
I had an interesting week, and it was one of those weeks where, I've talked before where I have the half up, half down week. And this was one of them. The ups to it are, Wednesday. Well, first of all, like I went out of the house 3 days this past week, which is, abnormally high for me. Yeah. And I don't just mean like walking down to the mailbox left the house. I mean, I was, like actually out of the house.
Out amongst the people.
Yeah.
3 social events. Yeah. That's awesome.
Cause on Tuesday I went with, Tony and Jeannie over to, we go to pub trivia and I've been trying to go whenever they go. And, we went and did that, which was fun. And then Wednesday, which is the day we normally record this show. Well, it's one of the days we record this show, I should say. But, I went down to my mailbox to get, a new phone. And, so I'm sitting there working on getting all the stuff situated on it. And I get a text from Tony and he's like, oh man, he's like, I can't wait to hear some music and, have some adult beverages tonight. And I'm like, I'm like, I'm like, tonight? And he goes, yeah, tonight. And I'm like, oh, cause I totally forgot we were going to see a band called the Menzingers, and a couple other bands, opened for them. And, I totally thought it was Thursday. I didn't think it was on Wednesday. So at this point, it's, I don't know, 4:30 or so. It's like, I hadn't showered yet. I hadn't eaten dinner. Or no, it was a little later than that, actually, I think. So, and I'm sitting there going, man, I'm not going to have time to fiddle with this phone right now. I need to get, so, I go take a shower and, put a little food in my face. And, then we went and Tony picked me up. We went and got Jeannie. We went to, went to have some food real quick before we went over there. And the place it was at, and I talked about this more, like Tony and I talk about this over on Salty Language too, but I'm just going to talk about the venue mostly, which the venue is Frankie's. And, Jen, have you ever been in there?
I have.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's not big.
No.
Now,
it is not a big.
I've said before, I like seeing rock shows in intimate settings because the feeling is awesome. You feel the energy from the crowd. The band is like right there. You're not like way, way away to where you have to watch some screen to see the concert, Anyway, this place was so hot and packed. I mean, this place was so full and, which is awesome. I loved it because it wasn't just for the headliner that was packed, but also we missed the first band, but the second band, they're called the Sidekicks. When they got on stage, the place was fairly full, which was awesome because, I always feel bad for bands when they get up there and there's like 3 people in the crowd. And then when the headliner comes on, the place is full, you know, it's like, well, you know, you paid for the ticket. Why not come see all the music if you can, you know? Anyway, so we're just through the night. It got hotter and hotter because more people came in, you know, and tighter to where at one point there was almost not really even a path. We were at where the way this is set up, it's like the bar is to the left of the stage. There's a little bit of space, and then basically all in front of, you know, the stage is where people are. But we were over by the bar, and there were so many people over there because it was, I think a lot of us hugged the bar because we knew if we didn't, it was hard to get to the bar for drinks or anything. So we kind of, once you had a spot, you were like mine, you know.
Yeah.
But I drank water, most of the night. I had 2 beers, and I was like, I'm switching to water because I was just melting. And, you know, and you know, those kind of venues, they're going to be hot because a lot of bodies packed into a small space. But after the first band we saw, Tony and I went outside, which I had to do for, first of all, just because I was so dang hot, but also my anxiety. I could really feel it because the crowd, you know, like so many people in such a small space. And plus, you know, I'm out in public, and this is the second day in a row I'm out in public. So those stack up for me, you know. So, you know, we went outside for a little bit, which was nice. There was nobody really outside with us. So it was, you know, open space, cool air. You know, we stood out there for, I don't know, whatever it took, basically for the band to tear down and then the Menzingers to set up. So, you know, 15 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it was. And then we went back in, and it was like, oh my God, it's so hot in here. Cause we had just been outside where it was, I don't know, like 70 or something. We go inside and it felt like it was like 90, you know. But by the time, you know, the Menzingers got done with their set, and then of course, you know, there's going to be, you know, they're going to do an encore and everything. But as they were doing their encore, I was seriously getting to a point to where I was feeling like if they don't wrap this up soon, I'm going to have to leave. Like, I'm going to have to go outside because I could, as I've talked before, I could feel my anxiety like reaching the top of my head essentially. And, they got done, and pretty much as soon as they got done, we, you know, with their, the encore stuff, we went ahead and left, and we got outside, and I was like, man, if they had played one more song, I don't know if I could have stayed. Like, it was, I could feel it so much. My anxiety was so over the top at that point. And, but it's another one of those situations to where I pushed myself because I think in the past I probably would have went outside again at some point during their set, which I hate doing because I always feel like it's disrespectful. I don't like leaving a comedy show or a music show in the middle of a set, you know?
Right.
I like to wait until they're done before I leave, but at that point it would have been self-preservation, so, you know, whatever. But, you know, so I saw it as a win because, again, first of all, 2 days in a row went out. That's a plus. Huge, you know, a good amount of people in a small area. I made it through that, even though I was pretty close to crazy by the time I was done. You know, but we got outside. By the time we walked to the car, I was a lot, and then the car ride home, we had the windows down because it was so nice. That helped too, you know, with the breeze blowing through and just, again, as you're driving, you see all the open space, you know, and that visualization makes a huge difference for me. So, you know, by the time I got home, I was feeling, you know, I was still pretty anxious, but I was doing a lot better. And I was like, man, I gotta get a shower. Cause, you know, I felt like I'd probably lost, I don't know, 30 or so pounds by sweating. You know, but one of the things, like, showers have always been nice for me because it's really a point where I can focus on breathing. And really, there's no outside distractions when you're in the shower most of the time, you know, like, you know, cause like I leave my phone in my room and, you know, it's just, no one's really going to bug you, you know, that kind of thing. So by the time I got done with my shower and came out, I felt a whole lot better cause first of all, clean and cooler, but second of all, because I kind of got to really focus on breathing and calming myself back down, you know, but, I'll tell you, it took, excuse me. And then Thursday I went to the grocery store, which I was gone for a while, but it wasn't terribly long. But it was funny because by the time I got done in the grocery store, in my head, I'm like, I'm done. Like, this is it for the week. I don't want to go out again this week. And it's taken till about today for me to kind of feel back to normal, have that hangover of the others, and it hasn't helped. Like, I've been really feeling like my depression's really been creeping into my head. And I think there's various reasons for it. And one of which is that, I haven't been to therapy because I couldn't go to the last appointment I had. And so I think I'm kind of, the normal tools, are out of whack, much like Jen mentioning with the medicine, that throws you out of your routine and, all that. But I've really been fighting it. But what I've done is, even though I've been really fighting with it, I have a list of notes for when I have therapy this coming week. So what I've done is, as I caught myself really kind of feeling something for a reason, I jotted it down. So that when I go in there, I can be like, hey, here's what I've been going through, and have talking points.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So even in the darker points, I'm trying to find the light, and try to find that little whatever, find the rope and to crawl out. Towards it. Yeah. And it's not been easy. I mean, today, honestly, I thought about just staying in bed all day today. I mean, I'm not going to lie. And I was hungry. So I was like, I need to eat. And then I fought with
that's what it takes. That's what it takes.
Yeah. I fought with the, I don't feel like getting out of bed. But I was like, but you're hungry. You need to eat. It's like I was having that argument with myself. And eventually the need to eat won. So.
Nice.
Yeah. Took a while though. It took about 45 minutes of me fighting with myself. Talk about things that seem really dumb. I'm awake. I can't just, leap out of bed. So, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's been my week. It's been that kind of thing. Like I said, the ups have outweighed the downs this week because we had a great time at the concert or the show or whatever. It's a band I dig. It was a lot of fun. It was really awesome. Again, one of the reasons I love seeing small venues is, as these guys are, the crowd was singing every song to these guys.
Nice.
And I don't just mean a couple people. I mean a large group of people right in front of the stage, or, pumping their fist and singing the song at the top of their lungs, to where at times you almost couldn't hear the band because the people were loud,
Wow.
Yeah. And I love that energy. It's just such a cool thing to see. And they seem to really be digging it because, they were like, we're having fun. We're going to play some extra songs. So.
Nice.
Yeah. So,
no, it sounds wonderful. It sounds like a really great time. And now the big question is, was the experiences that you had going out and doing things worth the negative effects in your book?
And yes, and that's what allows me to continue doing them. Because each time that I've gone,
the bads.
Each time I've gone to see a band, the last few times it's been in a smaller venue, to where they'll hold a couple hundred people and that's about it, and, they get pretty full up, they get hot, and heat adds to my anxiety, incredibly. So, plus, me, I'm always about 20 degrees too hot. So, it doesn't take a lot for me to be like, it's too hot in here,
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely worth it because I love live music. Every time I go, Tony and I, the last 3 or 2 times we've gone to something, we're both like, man, we need to get to more shows, and it's like, so it's something, it's cool because I actually just shared something on Facebook last night, which was talking about essentially how to find your passion again after you emerge from deep depression. And music has always been a passion of mine. And whenever I reconnect to music, it always is like, yeah, I remember, like, I love this feeling. I love being here. There's nothing like live music, and especially like for me, it's rock music because there's so much more energy to it than anything else, because like I said, the crowd's into it and jumping around and, singing back and all that. So it's it's one of those things where it's good because in my head it goes, okay, there's one fire that's igniting. Now let's find more, like,
absolutely.
Let's look at what used to really burn for you and let's try to reignite those. And that's my path, and so, yeah.
That's awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it.
Yeah, I just wish it didn't take me 3 days to get over,
Well, and hopefully in time it'll start to diminish. The recovery period maybe won't be as long. So but the key is you just keep putting yourself out there and keep doing it, and it will get better.
Yeah, I really honestly feel like the crowds and stuff like that probably won't get much better, because crowds have always bugged me, and but as long as it's worth it in the end. Again, the Van Gogh exhibit was super crowded, worth it. The last 3 shows I've been to were pretty crowded, worth it. Like every one of those things, it's that positive at the ending going, like you just said, it was like, was it worth it? And when I go, yes, it's like, cool, next time something comes up, I'm likely to try to do it,
Yes.
And I'll be honest.
And the recovery, I think the recovery is going to be less and less. The more you push yourself, you're always going to have that recovery, but it may not be as all-consuming as it is right now.
And I'll be honest, when Tony texted me on Wednesday, and was like, hey, the show's tonight, my head, boom, immediately was going into reasons why I shouldn't go or can't go. And I was just like, what do you know? It's like, this is a band you like. You want to go to this. This is hanging out with people you like. There's nothing really, there's always potential for, you never know what's going to happen. It's, there could be a fight or some baloney like that, but whatever. You can't, that's the stuff that it's like, nope, I'm not going to let that win. I'm not going to let that permeate the positive stuff. I'm going to go do this. So, that it helps, And again, it always helps because the people I went with are part of essentially my safety blanket. I always know that if I'm like, I can't handle this, I'm going to go outside, or I can't handle this anymore. Like, something will happen, They're going to be like, are you okay? They're not going to be like, shut up, I'm trying to listen to music. Yeah. You're ruining the show. Get out of here. Yeah, no. So.
Right. Mm-hmm. No, that's awesome. I'm glad that it was such a positive experience for you.
Yeah.
So, very cool.
Yep.
Well, something that I wanted to talk about today with you guys is the fact that what do you do when you know you're right and others don't appreciate it? It's so frustrating.
Yeah.
It is, and I think we've all been on both sides of that fence.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Yeah, it's like you've been on the side where you know the answer, but the other person just doesn't care or doesn't want to hear it.
Right.
And you've been on the other end of things where you're doing something and someone's giving you the answer and you're like, no, I don't want your input.
Right.
So it's frustrating on both sides of that coin. And it's so difficult to have good communication when you have those barriers there in front of you.
Right.
And it's really funny because, what brought it up was this week, we were painting the bathroom because I'm still doing bathroom construction. Hopefully it's almost over. But, we were painting the bathroom and my husband comes up and sees me painting and he's like, oh, you're supposed to do the W. And I looked at him, I'm like, I don't like the W. I like to do up and down and then move and go that way. And he's like, but the W is how you do it. I'm like, well, this is how I do it. I don't care about the W. He's like, but I have books that say you do the W. you watch those shows on TV, and the shows on TV say do the W. Mm. And I'm like, I understand that. Don't like the W.
Yeah.
Want to do it my way.
Like, I'm a rebel, Daddy, a loner. Yeah.
And he was, freaking out because he's like, but no, you don't understand. It's not logical. That's not the way it's done. It's done in the W, and then you fill the W in, and that's how you get that. That's how you do it. And I looked at him, I'm like, don't care. No, don't want to do it that way.
That's not how I do it.
That's not how I paint.
Yeah.
You want me to paint? I will paint my way. And it was one of those moments, and I stop and I think about it, and I'm like, we all have those moments in our lives, both sides. Yeah. And I thought you guys would probably have a few things to comment on that whole thing.
Well, that example you gave actually kind of shows both sides of it, because you both really are going, I'm right, and I need you to recognize that the way I'm gonna, I'm right, essentially. But both of you are also saying you're wrong and, not willing to budge on that, I don't care what you think. So it really is a good example of, that's a perfect, moment of it, cause a lot of times that is what happens though, is that both sides are like, no, you do it this way. No, you do it it's like somebody watching somebody cook a steak or something. Be like, no, you got to this or this. And be like, no, I don't. This is how I do it, and that kind of stuff happens all the time. So yeah, that's a great example.
It is one of those moments that, it can be so frustrating for both parties, and it's really difficult to communicate between the two people trying to get that point across. And both people are coming from a place of good.
Yeah.
So it's not like somebody's being a jerk to be a jerk, because no, that's not it. They're truly coming from a place of, I want to help you. Why won't you let me help you?
Yeah.
I want to help you,
right.
And I think that's what adds to it. It's like, but no, I'm being good.
Right.
I'm trying to be nice. I'm trying to help.
But the way it comes across is more like, you're stupid and you should do it my way.
Exactly. Yeah. That's like, but I just want to help.
Mm-hmm.
So, and it's so tough when
actually, the best example of this that I can really ever think of is probably the grammar thing.
Yes, correcting people.
Yep. And we've talked about this on here before. It's like, when somebody will type something or they'll use the wrong word or whatever, and it's like, do you have to be that person that corrects them? Especially if you know what they're meaning, do you have to correct them? Yeah, we all do. We all have that feeling of, and some of us have, like I said, when we talked about this before, it's like like you said, it's coming from a good place, because in my head I'm going, I don't want you to sound ignorant to someone else,
Mm-hmm.
And it isn't that I'm trying to be right or in the sake of, winning, essentially. I'm just like, hey, cause I know I would prefer someone correct me. I don't want to go be ignorant, and end up in like a job interview and you're just like, and you just throw random things and they're
it's a mute point.
Yeah. But, that kind of stuff. So you're right. It comes from a good place, and it isn't always about winning. So a lot of times it becomes about winning, even if it didn't start as it, it'll end up as it, because people will, you'll tell somebody something once and then they keep doing it and you're just like, oh, I tried to help you. Why won't you listen to me?
Yeah.
Like you said,
And it happens, I think, a lot also with, a parent-teenager relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a pretty common scenario that keeps coming up. And part of it is people need to have their opportunity to make mistakes, to make their own choices. It's very different when you have someone that's coming to you and saying, X, Y, and Z happen, you get what you want.
Mm-hmm.
And they are convinced that X, Y, and Z, for instance, graduate high school, you go to college, you get your degree, you get a good job. Boom, boom, boom. That's what you do. And if you don't want to do it that way, right, wrong, or indifferent, it makes it very difficult, because, the parent is coming from that perspective of, no, this is what you do. You do X, Y, Z. Got it, done. And the child, on the other hand, is like, but I don't want to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
And so, it's that dynamic of both parties. Neither one of them is really coming from a bad place. They're coming from a good place because they both want the best for themselves, for the child.
Yeah.
But how they're going about it, I think, is a little different.
Isn't it amazing, though? Sorry, real quick. Isn't it amazing, though, how when someone comes to you and says something, like, even if they approach it with, like, hey, I see you're going through this. I went through the exact same thing, and here are the pitfalls, Isn't it amazing how a lot of us will just be like, but when it's more like, but then we're willing to, like, rush headfirst into that scenario, do exactly what they warned us not to do, fall on our face, and then have the hindsight of, oh, I should have listened to them. Isn't it amazing how we will do this over and over and over? You think at some point we would go, maybe I should listen to these people trying to give me some advice. But we don't. We're so hard-headed on both accounts, both sides, that many of the times, like, don't tell me what to do,
But I think it comes down to this one point. It is not the destination, it is the journey.
Right.
And if you listen to somebody, so if they say, okay,
yeah,
if you go on this path, you will get to this destination. And you're like, sweet, I'll get this destination. And then you go down the path, get to the destination, everything's all good. You really didn't learn much. But if someone says this path takes you to this destination, whatever, and you decide to take that path and wander off a little bit and go a different direction and kind of, poke around in the trees and just have a little good time and finally get to the destination. Yes, you didn't necessarily take their advice and you didn't follow their exact footsteps, their nice paved pathway that they put for you. But on the flip side, you have learned your own lessons and you have grown yourself as a person. So I think that's where a lot of this comes into play, is finding that balance and really understanding that, appreciate the fact that they want to help you get to the destination as quickly and as efficiently as possible. But then on the flip side, the person has to respect the fact that you need to make sure that you're taking the path that you want to take to get to that destination so that you can grow yourself in the best way possible. So it's that balance.
That makes sense. And that also would explain why it's incredibly hard for parents to step back on that. Because as a parent, your first job is, don't let your kid get hurt. Protect your child, essentially. Right. And yet at the same time, it's like, at some point along the process, you have to start cutting the strings and let them fall on their face, because of, like you're saying, it's like, well, I gotta let you just fall on your face. And, like my dad always told me, he would give me his advice because as my dad, that's his job, is to try to keep me from falling into pitfalls, like, hey, there's a hole there, don't step in it. And I'll be like, I want to see what's in it, and, but then if I step in it and hurt myself, he wasn't like I told you so, that's, you don't go that way. It's just, but in his head, it's like, well, I told him not to do that. He did it anyway. So he'll learn that, it's like you said, it's sometimes you have to just let the person get hurt. But it is interesting. You can see it in parents all the time because, they have to let the kids fall on their face at some point and not immediately run over and lift them back up. Sometimes you just gotta let them lay there for a minute and pick themselves up. And then that's, like you were saying, that's where you've learned your lesson is, don't step in the hole,
Exactly.
Meanwhile,
it's
if someone says, hey, don't step there, if you just go, oh, okay, and walk around it, what if they're not there next time, And
how boring would the world be if we all were automatons? Okay, you cook a steak this way. I cook a steak this way. This is it. I paint the wall in a W. Everyone paints the wall in a W.
Yeah.
If we were so uniform and all did everything the exact same way, every single time, because it's the most efficient, it's the most effective way of doing things, that wouldn't make us human. That wouldn't, we wouldn't have the enjoyment and the variety in life that we cherish so much.
Yeah.
So when you think about it in those perspectives, and I try very hard when I'm at work, because I have a lot of knowledge about Microsoft Office. And I think Microsoft Office is a fabulous programs that set of programs that have 1,000,001 ways to do the exact same thing. Mm-hmm. So you can use your keyboard, you can use the drop-down menus, you can use shortcut keys, all to do the exact same function. And the reason I brought that up is I have learned that I'm like, I need to say, when someone asks me how to do something, like, here is how I do it. Mm-hmm. And I'll show them my how I do it, and this is my preferred method of doing it. But there are other ways of getting to the same result. But this is the way I do it. Or if someone shows me something that another way of doing things, I'm like, oh, okay, that's another way of doing it. Or that's one way of doing it. And I really have to focus and make sure that I keep in my mind that just because I have a way of doing something does not mean it is the only way of doing things.
Right.
It may be the most efficient for me. Maybe it's not the most efficient for somebody else.
Right.
Even though it seems to be the most efficient overall, maybe it's not.
Yeah.
So it's understanding that and keeping that in the forefront of your mind that, you may not have the only way, the only answer.
And
I think...
Go ahead, Hannah.
I was just saying, I think that's the key is, at least for me, is there's a lot of times where I see people doing things in a way that I wouldn't do it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, they're not asking me.
Right.
That's a good point,
right?
too. Yeah.
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 So that doesn't mean that I should go and now make my opinion known. All it means is they do it different.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yep.
That's a really good point.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I settle myself a lot in these situations is I just go, you know what? They're just doing it differently than I would do it. That's all of my experience says that's not the way you do it. But A, they're not asking me, and B, they're just doing it different.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't work out and then they ask me, then I can share my experience. By the way, was it a flat paint or was it some sort of an eggshell?
It is, I believe, a satin.
Then definitely you gotta go straight up and down. Solid lines from top to bottom.
Sweet!
All the way across the wall. You do not do a W with anything with a gloss.
Nice. I'm justified. My position is supported.
No. You're not
go from top to bottom.
You're not justified, Jen, because Henno didn't say willy-nilly. He said top to bottom.
True. I am kind of willy-nilly.
Yes. Now, before we go into this, Jen was starting to mention an article that I have here with some talking points. Yes. One thing I want to point out, because I haven't pointed it out in this episode yet, which is the need to be right, or to always be right, is on the Distorted Thinking worksheet. It is not, it's not something you want to pride yourself in. Also, who wants to be, listen, we all want to know it all, but you don't want to be a know-it-all, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah. We always want to learn, but you don't want to be that one who, well, actually, all the time, because people will stop talking to you.
Well, it's a little known fact, but...
Yeah.
Reminds me of one of my favorite quotes, which is, "Oh no, I've said too much, but I haven't said enough."
Yeah.
And yes, it is from that wonderful Losing My Religion song. And the reason I love it so much is because the way I interpret it is I haven't said enough to get my point across, but I have said too much, I have lost my audience.
Yeah.
So, too many words, not enough content. Happens all the time.
I have a tweet that said, what was it? I'm trying to think. I think it's something along the lines of people who start a sentence with the words, well, actually, are assholes, or something to that effect, or about to be considered assholes, because that's exactly the case. As soon as you pull the well, actually, like Jen was just saying, people will start tuning you out, because they go, you're about to be a know-it-all, or whatever, kind of a situation. And as we said, nobody wants that, Because know-it-alls tend to be condescending and all that. Nobody wants to feel that way. They don't want to feel like they're stupid,
What I hate is, I'll say, people will ask me a question, they want a simple answer, and it all depends upon variables they haven't provided.
Yeah.
And so I have to ask those follow-up questions, and it's like, no, I don't want to be that person, but
right.
It's like, you're forcing me into this box. You're forcing me to, because there's a different answer for different things.
Yeah.
You can't just say, what's the answer to 1 plus X?
Mm.
It's like, I kind of have to know what X is. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be condescending. I don't mean to be overly critical.
Yeah, well, essentially you have to solve for X, but you need, 1 plus X equals 9, then you can figure out X. Without, without the other part of it, it's like, unless you're going to give me 1 plus X equals Y, and then it's like, I don't know, because how do I solve that? It's like, you're giving me weird, it's like you have to give me the full situation to solve correctly. Real quick, the tweet that I wrote, and I apologize for the language here, but it's, well, actually, if you start a sentence with, well, actually, you're about to sound like an asshole. Because, and I did that.
It is also another one of those.
Because one of the, things I was on, a group I was in, there was somebody who used to do that a lot. Like, people would say stuff, and they were always that person who had to have, and it's like, no one cares. Like, we're joking, we're this or this. It's like, and that's why I got to the point to, like, when a lot of times when people do that, I'll just look at it and be like, and? Because it's like, okay, you said your piece. Now what? Like, no one asked for it, Like, what do you want us to do now? Like, throw you a parade or what, so it really is. Like I said, you just come across like a jerk, and that's, that's not generally what most of us want to do. Even though it is, most of the time, coming from a good place. It is generally people wanting to help or, impart knowledge on you. And you're just like, but like Henno said, it's like, did they ask? If not, it's like, if A, then B. Did they ask? No. Proceed to A, or to, this way. If they did ask, then,
You need to add a caveat in there. Did they ask? Can they hurt themselves? Because sometimes
I don't know.
People are doing things that are wrong.
Right.
It's the wrong way of doing it.
Yeah. Don't stick your hand.
Hurt themselves, you gotta let them go.
Yeah,
but if they can hurt themselves doing it, say, no.
Don't stick your hand under the lawnmower while it's running.
Yes.
I just want to see what happens. All right.
Well, I think there's a big difference between when you are training somebody to do something versus, that's like if you're training somebody, it's your responsibility to teach them.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And to keep them safe. Mm-hmm. That's when you're not a know-it-all then.
Right.
Right.
Mm-hmm. I think what this really comes down to is, and it's not just work, it's not just things that we do all day, it's even life stuff. It's called unsolicited advice.
Yes.
And my advice is amazing, and I have to impart it to everyone.
They didn't ask for it.
Really quick.
But they didn't know they couldn't get. Didn't know they could get it. That's the problem.
We've actually kind of talked about that part of it when we've talked in the past about how to talk to somebody with a mental illness or whatever, and that a lot of times they don't want to, or need to be told, smile or, just always be happy or this, like those kind of things because, again, that's unsolicited advice. It's like, just because I'm depressed doesn't mean that not to mention, a lot of times with unsolicited advice, you're assuming when you give unsolicited advice that the person did not consider that. Sometimes people consider the right way and proceed anyway.
That's a great point. That's a great point.
There's a lot of times, like, okay, look, most people know you probably shouldn't hold on to fireworks too long, right? It's pretty, commonsensical kind of stuff. How many people end up in the ER every year because they've blown a finger off with fireworks? They know they shouldn't hold on to those because they know they're holding an explosive, but they have the "it's not going to happen to me" mentality. which is one of the most dangerous things humans have ever had. and they hold on to it, and then whoops-a-daisy, there goes a finger, so even sometimes...
Oopsie.
Yeah. So, yeah.
But it is kind of tough, even just touched on it just then a little bit, is that feeling of, well, they may not know. Yeah. And if I don't tell them, if I don't help them, then they may not, they may not be able to grow, or they may not be able to be as efficient as they possibly could. And maybe they'll be grateful that I saved them time. Mm-hmm. So, you have all of these good intentions, all these good thoughts popping through your head and stuff. And it's, it's almost a high that you get. You're like,
oh yeah,
I can help you.
Well, yeah, you're excited to help them.
Yeah, because you fed your narcissism. Yes. I mean, really, you fed your ego. Let me word it that way.
Yeah, your ego's about to go boing.
Yeah. Now, here's another thing, which is that in giving this unsolicited advice, and parents definitely will identify this, there's a lot of times when you're like, hey, don't do this, it's stupid, and what does a kid do? The opposite. So you've tried to help, but what you've actually done is essentially kind of shove them toward what you didn't want them to do. So, and parents are going to run into that no matter what. I'm just saying sometimes other people will do that, like at jobs and stuff. Like you'll be like, hey, do it this way. I'll show them, and yeah. Mm. Next thing you know, whoopsie, there goes your finger in a fireworks accident. Wait.
Something like that.
All right, so the first talking point, this article I got from mindbodygreen.com, and it says 7 reasons you don't need to be right all the time. And I know you're sitting out there going, yeah, I do, but seriously, listen. Like, the first one on here is needing to be right comes with a heavy price. So true. It says people who have to fight or have to be right find themselves alone and isolated from groups of friends, colleagues, or families. See my tweet earlier. They hold on to their righteous ideology and opinions so tightly that no one can have a reasonable dialogue with them. A heavy shield descends over their exterior, which in turn reflects their inner need to never let go of the person they project to others. The need to be right becomes a crusade. Even though they might suffer emotionally, physically, and intellectually, they would never notice the negative effects of or debilitating psychic downward spiral. However hard they push their ideological agenda, these people fail to realize that they are more than the thought they are projecting. As Henno said before we started recording, and he said on here before, do I need to be right, or do I want to be right, or do I want to be happy? And there's just sometimes, even if it's the right thing, you just keep it to yourself. Like it's just, and now listen, if you're at pub trivia and you know all the things, help the team. But, other than that, it's like, like I said,
But even at pub trivia, you may know the answer. You may know it's exactly the right answer. But somebody is just as passionate, if not more passionate, they have the answer that is wrong. You let them have it anyways.
No, because I'm there to win.
Because quite frankly, unless you're going to be tossing the table and going to fisticuffs over something, it's not worth it.
No, our team has a situation, like what we do is we Rochambeau if we have 2 people that are extremely passionate. If we can't come to if the rest of the team doesn't weigh one way or the other, that's the answer is the Rochambeau. But yeah, that's pretty rare. Most of the time it ends up being someone comes up with an answer and the rest of us going, so,
And Rochambeau, for those out there that aren't the, fancy types like Brian, it's rock, paper, scissors, folks.
Yeah. Whatever. Show it the respect it deserves. It's Rochambeau.
It's rock, paper, scissors. I don't know if everyone starts calling it Rochambeau now, and I'm like,
because the official league that does it's the Rochambeau, tournaments and stuff. They don't call it rock, paper, scissors. They're not savages.
Only the fanciest of tiebreakers.
Yeah.
Yes, this is true.
The next point on here is needing to be right does not respect the individuality of others, which is I kind of think what I was getting at a minute ago. Every person's born with unique DNA. Every brain is wired differently. What you think comes from nurture and nature, just as what I think comes from different constructs. This suggests a need for mutual respect. But if someone can't let go of having to be right, their mindsets become rigid and fixed in patterns that prevent openness to others. Very
nice.
Yeah, very accurate.
Very true.
Yeah.
Yes. Each person has their own way of looking at things, and it is about a respect. And unintentionally, I think we disrespect each other by wanting to share our thoughts and impart our knowledge that we don't give them the respect that they deserve, that maybe, like you mentioned before, they already know. Yeah. They've thought about it and they've done it in a different way for a reason. Or maybe they already have it under control and they don't need our help. And by us inserting our help, it's insulting to them.
Yeah. Well, or, depending on where they're raised. Here's a question for you. George Washington, hero or traitor? In this country, Revolutionary War hero and such. England, maybe not see him the same way, because he was a traitor to the country. And, and both sides, they're not wrong. He is both.
Legit arguments.
So you could see where two people could have an argument over this, and realistically, they could both have that need to be right and not even consider the other side and just keep fighting and fighting and fighting over something like that, just that kind of a thing. Or, pineapple on pizza, I mean, it's wrong, but there's some people who try to argue that it's right. It's blasphemous is what it is. But anyway.
Awesome.
The next one on here is needing to be right destroys the possibility of entertaining alternatives. I guess that's kind of what I was just talking about. Mm-hmm. The notion of being right conflates truth with fact. Whose truth? Whose fact? What if two different viewpoints each confirm to the truth? This is exactly what I was just talking about, actually. Which is more right? Or is one person's truth the other person's fiction? Like I said, George Washington, traitor or hero. Discuss amongst yourselves.
Right.
Yeah. The next one, needing to be right leads to self-destructive behavior. It's human nature to perceive people who have to be right as know-it-alls. This implacable, I can't talk, whatever. Attitude conjures up self-righteousness, pictures of loners and people who are alienated from interaction in society. The general perception is they are not a team player. Speaking of being right in grammar, I just caught a typo. Or don't work well with others. They are hard to get along with. They turn away connectedness and love. Which makes sense because, people who are seen as always needing to be right tend to be seen as standoffish and, and such because they won't let go of the need to be right. No matter what the situation is. Yeah, it definitely, like we said earlier, it isolates you because other people want to hang out with you less because they don't want you constantly correcting them or whatever.
And so often we don't realize we're even doing it. That's the slippery slope.
Yeah.
Is that pretty soon you find yourself very isolated and you can't understand why. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, because motive is so important here. What is your motivation?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is it, are you doing it to people please? Are you trying to impress people? That was my thing.
A lot of people, that's what it is.
I wanted to impress you. Yeah. I want to impress you with my knowledge. I want to share what I know. Mm-hmm. And after a while, you come across as arrogant or the guy that's always got something to add to everything or some little bit. And it can be a little amusing at first, but after a while, it can also become a little, annoying. And, you find, I've just found out I've enjoyed my life a lot more when I've learned to just keep my mouth shut. Because I was the other guy. And not to say that I still don't dive into that. I still do. I try to be a little bit more discreet, maybe, or I guess using the word, I use my discretion.
Yeah.
I try to use my judgment. I try to actually, that sometimes it's better to not be heard.
Yeah. Well, and there's like the old saying about how, humans are born with 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we can listen twice as much as we talk.
Yeah,
And my dad used to tell me that he always felt that people that run their mouths all the time did that because they didn't want to hear the truth. Or, kind of a situation. And again, it wasn't about being right, but it was more about like, shut your mouth and listen once in a while,
Yeah, I'm first out.
Yeah. So, there is that element. And you're right, Hanno. It's like the more, it's really interesting because it's amazing how much when you start shutting your mouth more and using your ears more, how different a lot of things seem. You start really hearing what people are saying to you. You start seeing situations differently because you actually are paying attention. You're, you're invested then, rather than, as we've said before, it's like, instead of just waiting for the next opportunity to talk, you're actually having a conversation, So there's a good, we all know we should probably listen more, probably just good for you anyway. Excuse me. Jeez. The next one is needing to be right cuts you off from possibilities and opportunities. People who have to be right perpetuate their own isolation and cut themselves off from what the world has to offer because they're convinced they know best. Their rigid ideas and opinions keep them from evolving. They cannot and will not see a future. Life stands still. Worse, they are stuck in the past. That one I can totally see. And have actually experienced, to where you'll essentially pick a hill to die on because you need to be right. And other people are like, yeah, that's not actually how things are. And they move past you. And you're like, well, you just do it. I'm going to be over here being right, Yeah. I mean, basically it's what you're saying. I know that's not the actual conversation, but it's the idea of, kind of like, well, you do that, and basically I'll be here waiting to tell you I told you so. And they're like, yeah, cool, have fun 10 years ago, we're going to move into the future,
Yeah.
Or you keep waiting, You wait, I'm going to go live.
Yeah.
And that's what's happened with me is it's, I wouldn't do something because I was convinced that X was going to happen, and so I wouldn't do something. And as a result, it, stalled life or, it makes you isolate because other people don't agree with you. So, yeah. This one's a great one too. Needing to be right kills curiosity. People who have to be right do not practice active listening. They don't hear what's going on in the environment. If they don't listen, they never learn anything new. Curiosity dies slowly, and in the end, nothing but validation will ever interest a person who has to be right. For a mind to develop, it needs to entertain alternative thoughts, ideas, and desires. How do you learn if not through others? Now, what's funny about that a little bit is you read various stuff, there's a lot of stuff that points out that basically one of the hardest things for us to do is to actually learn that way. It's hard to unlearn a way. Like, if you feel X is right, it's hard to teach your brain that isn't right. Or that may not be the only way. It's really hard for us to undo training, essentially. So
understanding Common Core math.
Yeah, that's a great example. It really is. Well, not even just that, but even before that. Like, when I took algebra, my dad showed me a different way where you do some of the steps in your head. And I didn't write all of them down, and I kept getting my questions wrong. And I'm like, the answer's right, and there's enough work there that essentially you should see I've done the work. And she's like, well, I can't see all the steps. And I'm like, but there's work there that leads toward it, and the final answer's right. Why do I need to have 5 more steps written down when I can just boom, boom, and do them in my head? And basically she's like, because that's what's right. And the funny part is, in a real world application, we're both right. As long as you arrive at the answer, it doesn't matter so much. But if you're doing things in some situations, like in scientific applications, you have to show all your work so others can replicate it, But in your day-to-day life, you don't need to write down all the things to keep track of, every little mathematical thing you come across. Sometimes you can just do 1 + 4 in your head, you know? You don't have to write it down to show your work or something. So, yeah.
No, that's a fabulous one. Like you said, it's so dead on the point. Wait a minute. Is that right? Hit the nail on the head. There we go. Yeah. That's a good one.
Mm. Yeah, that's right. No. We'll just keep, that's what we really should have done that. We should have just deliberately like kept making mistakes and one of the rest of us correct the other one the whole show, you know?
Correcting each other. That'd be awesome.
Well, actually, the last one is needing to be right is not worth the struggle. It takes so much energy for people to have to be right. Sometimes it even takes weapons to keep their ideas alive and spreading. Those who take ideas to extremes with a single-minded purpose and never notice different shades of gray are the true losers in their fight to keep their beliefs alive. If people just didn't have to be right, they might notice things differently and start to accept change as not only inevitable, but good. They might actually recognize they are feeling happier because they're more connected. They might accept new possibilities for a more meaningful and fulfilling life. You know, there's a great point in there I hadn't thought about, or we hadn't brought up, is the concept of, actually, Henno kind of, no, that was before we recorded, but pointing out that if you don't see the shades of gray in life, everything is right or wrong, again in the distorted thinking worksheet.
Yep.
But seeing the world as black and white is not going to give you an accurate look at the world. Because most things happen in the gray area. And if you only, and this one 100% I can speak on. Because for years and years and years, I was very much there's no gray area. You're either right or you're wrong. Like it's either legal or illegal. It's this, there's no gray areas. And then you start hearing about certain laws and you start going, situationally, or this happens or something at work. And then you start really paying attention to stuff and you're like going, you know what? Most things actually aren't in right or wrong. Right and wrong are actually the extremes. The clear cut right and wrong are the extremes. Murdering is wrong, like that one's easy, most people don't murder. So the gray area in that is that you don't have to worry about it. And that, again, that gray area is where life happens. And if you ignore it, it makes sense that you would miss out on a lot of stuff because you're just choosing not to see it, Yeah.
Yeah.
I think everything went quiet.
No, right.
All right.
Well, it's really a reflection of, how open-minded are you going through this life? How are you looking at really? I mean, I know a lot of people. Their motivation is, I'm adding to the stream. Well, are you?
Yeah.
Are you really adding to it, or are you taking it away? Are you just being a buzzkill?
Right. Well, you made a great point when you said, "What's your motivation?" I think that is so important with this. A lot, I think Henno maybe nailed the two best advice pieces in this whole talk. With the one earlier of, did they ask for it? And then, this other part. Because, wow, I totally lost where I was going.
You were talking about motivation.
Oh, yeah. It, are you doing this because you have to be right, because you want the ego boost, or to impress somebody, blah, blah, or are you doing it to actually try to help someone? And then, because there's a difference even in that. Like, one's from a good place, the other one is veiled as from a good place, but it's really not. It's more about, you just being right. And those are the ones that are, listen, they're, both of them still need to be situational and all that, like, does the person ask for it? Do they need it? Whatever. Are they going to hurt themselves, as Jen said, but if you're just doing it for the ego boost, really turn those ones down, because you're not going to, first of all, you're not going to get the ego boost you think you're going to get because most people are not going to be impressed, They really aren't. Think about it. When you have conversations with people, they'll be impressed when you pull something out like a name of a character off of a 1980s TV show. But when you actually are like, you know what, in history, blah, 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 a lot of times people are like, yawn, you know? So,
it's true.
You know, maybe don't put too much value in those ones, you know? So, yeah. That's all I got.
No, I think this is a really good list, and it really touches on pretty much all the basics around the topic. It's so difficult, and I know I'm never going to get away from it. You know, I have a tendency to be a know-it-all, and
me too.
You know, it is part of me, but kind of what you've alluded to, Hannah, and what you've done for yourself is that you've really focused on, you know, is it necessaries? Do they need to know? Do they want to know?
Yeah.
And, you know, and adjusting yourself to fit the situation. I'm learning. I'm not as far along the learning curve as you are, but I am learning. I'm better at it for short periods of time. It's like I'll catch myself and I'm like, all right, and I fix it, and I try to be very, you know, listen more, talk less, try not to give unsolicited advice, and I'm really focused and I really try hard, and I can't sustain it, and that's where I struggle. I fall off the bus.
Well, sustainability comes from practice. So, you know, the more you apply it.
Yeah. So hopefully, you know, I can get there. But I do notice a more positive feedback from when I listen more, talk less, and try to keep my unsolicited opinions to myself.
Right, because people feel like you've engaged them. You're listening, you're actually hearing them and such, rather than like, just waiting for their mouth to stop so yours can begin, you know. It's what so many people have done, myself included. I'm not saying other people. It's, you know, it's just, it's so easy to do, you know, like, oh, how was your day? And you just like, gosh, shut up. I want to tell you about this. You know, it's like, I wanted you to say fine so that I could go on. You know, you know, I have a second article here. I'm not going to go over it on this, but I'm going to include it in the show notes if anyone wants to read it. It's from Psychology Today. It says, why is it so important to be right? And one of the things the guy points out in there, which I had forgotten, I brought it up in the past on here, which is a lot of this I really think has to do with, it starts in like school or when you're a little kid, because when you're a little kid, parents kind of give you the yes or no, you know, and in school, everything is right or wrong. There's no gray area. You know, like I was saying with my algebra, you know, the teacher said, no, it's wrong because it's not what the book says is right, you know, and realistically, I was solving the problems just as easy as other kids were. You know, it's just I wasn't showing everything. So by whatever, it was wrong. But, you know, if you were just getting the answers, I'm still getting it right. So it really is kind of instilled in us. And then we have to spend all this time fighting against that training of right and wrong is the only way to look at the world. You know, it's why so many kids, you know, one of the phrases you hear the most out of kids is, it's not fair. You hear it a lot out of adults too. It's not fair. And it's like, no, what you mean is it doesn't fit your ideal of right, you know? And that's really what it comes down to. And again, it probably fell in that gray area, and you got to understand that's actually where most things are going to fall, you know? Mm-hmm. The other thing, like you were mentioning, Jen, it's like when you notice that people give you better feedback when you listen versus talk. And it's like, you know, a lot of times kind of going with what Heno said, it's like almost like when you're in a situation like that, it's like, can you stop and ask yourself, which is the better thing to use, my ears or my mouth? Mm-hmm. And if you had the time to do that and answer it honestly, we'd probably be so much better as people. You know?
Right?
But it's amazing how much faster that mouth is than the ears.
Yeah, and here's the thing is, all those little nuances of I mean, I'm talking about cultural nuances, and I mean workplace culture, even actual culture, ethnic cultures, that kind of stuff. I don't think we can pick up on a lot of those things when our mouth is flapping away.
Right.
And
true.
It's, and it's this idea of really going, am I being the right size in this situation? Because Jen, you absolutely pointed out correctly, there are some times where you absolutely have to, open your mouth because it's a safety reason, or someone's about to screw something up really bad.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes back to my questions, my 6 questions.
Yep.
Doesn't need to be said. Doesn't need to be said right now. Doesn't need to be said right now by me. Is it necessary? Is it kind? Is it helpful?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of times where I think even just looking at it, it's like, am I being kind in this situation by bringing this up? Sure, I'm being helpful. I can convince myself I'm being helpful all the time. But is my motivation from a position of kindness?
Yeah, exactly. Because if it's from a position of ego, like I was saying before, maybe you need to dial it back,
Mm-hmm.
because most of us need a good dial back on our egos, I mean, there's a lot of us that do, and you really do become a better person by engaging people better, and again, a lot of times, I've gone to this well a bunch, but I'll keep doing it. And there was an episode of Everyone Hates Chris, where Chris's mom comes home from work and she's just trying to unload. And at first, the dad just keeps giving advice and giving advice and giving advice, and she's getting frustrated with him, and he can't figure out why. And eventually, someone points out to him, it's like maybe all she needs is for you to just listen and say, like, "Oh wow, that sucks," So then the next day she comes home, goes to download to him, and he like starts rubbing her feet, and he's, doing that and kind of going through the, oh wow, that's terrible and all this kind of stuff. And you can see the difference in her character, that she's clearly happier because now she feels like he's listening. It's not about him anymore. She needs some time for it to be about her, and he's making it about both of them really, because he's saying, I care enough about you to engage in this conversation with you, but not impose upon you,
Mm-hmm.
And that's such that scene always stuck with me because it's so true. So many times that's really all people need. It's why therapy is so important.
Absolutely.
You go download to them. Occasionally they put in a comment or whatever,
And when you're talking about yourself, you're always right.
There's a lot of truth to that. I mean, it's always what you see. So yeah, it's always your perspective.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I can't argue with that.
Right.
Well, on that point, I don't know. I think we're pretty good, guys. What do you think?
Yeah.
I like it
too.
All right. Awesome. Well, folks, if you want to continue the conversation with us, we'd love to hear from you. You can reach out to us. You can reach me at Twitter at Jen's Crazy Life. That's Jen with a G. You can also shoot us an email at thecrazylifepodcast@outlook.com. And you can visit our website at thecrazylifepodcast.weebly.com. And you, Henno, how can they reach you?
You can find me on Twitter at Ida Henno. Find me on Facebook, Henno Heiter.
And Brian?
You can also find the show on Twitter at The Crazy Life Pod, where we post when new episodes go up, but, you should already be subscribed anyway. You can find me on Twitter at Stunami. You can find the other podcast I'm part of, Salty Language, at salty_language or at saltylanguage.com. And that show is very not safe for work, so don't play it in front of the kids and such. You can also find us over on Facebook at facebook.com/group/crazylifepodcast. We're part of the Tangibound Network, which can be found at tangiboundnetwork.com. So go check that out. There's a bunch of other shows over there that you might find to your liking. If you use iTunes, we'd love it if you could leave us a review, a rating. And again, please subscribe if you haven't already. All those things kind of help us when people look for podcasts. If you use Stitcher or other podcast apps, if they have a like or a share button, please use those for the same reason, just so maybe other people will see us and be like, "Ooh, I want to listen to that." And I think that's it for the links. if you haven't taken a listen to the intro song in a while, go back and listen to that, because Henno did a cool job on that. And again, the links to the Shrink to Shrink podcast, part 1 and 2 of that conversation, I'll have in the show notes again. So, if you do want to find that, you can find that, or they're on Twitter at Shrink to Shrink. Like Henno said, it's the word shrink, the letter 2, then shrink. And then let's see, what else is there? Oh, we're not doctors, trained professionals, or therapists. We're just 3 people sharing our experiences and opinions. Doesn't make us right. But we're right. I mean, no, I'm kidding.
We're always right.
Yeah. As Tony and I say over on Salty Language, we have the internet and microphones, so we're right. Anyway, if you need help, or you're feeling a crisis, like Henno mentioned earlier in the episode, with the guys from Dropping Loads, call one of those numbers, text one of those numbers, call a doctor's office, make an appointment, call a friend, whatever you need to do. Go to the hospital, tell them you're having a crisis. Please reach out. Don't isolate, because that's exactly what the mental illness wants you to do. And please don't self-medicate or self-diagnose. And also, please don't see this show as a replacement for therapy. We can't encourage you enough to go get actual help. We love if we can help people out there, maybe make the journey easier or help you understand what someone's going through. But, for the real work, you need to go see a professional. And then, if you're feeling as though you may harm yourself or others, definitely contact somebody. Don't wait until you're at the point that you may actually follow through with it. If you're in the planning stages or anything like that, you catch yourself writing like how you would do a suicide note or how you would do it, contact someone, talk to your doctor. Don't be alone if possible. If you know someone who's using those kind of that kind of verbiage, don't leave them alone. Try to help them get some help. Or at least, if you can stay with them through the crisis, please, do that. And then, of course, going along with that, reach out to somebody this week, Tell somebody you appreciate them. Tell them that you love them. See how they're doing, whatever it is. Because in the end, and, again, close your mouth and use your ears and, a little more. Because we all need to do that more.
Absolutely. That is your lesson for the day, folks. Close the mouth, open the ears. Mm-hmm. Go out into the world and try to listen more. So, with that, you guys have a great week. Welcome to the Crazy Life, everybody. I'm back. I know. I'm on again, I'm off again, I'm on again, off again. Sorry, everybody. I'm trying, I swear. Well, as those who... I can't even talk, sorry, folks. Yeah. For those who listen regularly, I'm Jen. And for new listeners, I'm Jen. And for everybody else, yeah, let's just start this over because I'm rambling and going all over the